Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host. Speaking at you from August 18th, 2024 in the space and time continuum. We're still in this zone of things being upright. We're no longer in an upside down world. We're in an upright world. So part of what we do here is try and keep each other sane, and that's a lot easier now. Do I need to do this podcast anymore? But there are things that are going to be very interesting. Kind of discussed this with a couple people, Heidi and my friend Doug. Doug called me again today. He's kind of becoming a producer of the show as well because he gives me ideas of what to talk about. And I definitely want to do a lot of research to figure out how to talk about a subject that he brought up, which is, will Trump try and use the Supreme Court to overturn the election when he loses? Very interesting question. Now, I told him that Kamala Harris has hired Mark Elias. Now, he didn't know who Mark Elias was. I don't expect him to. I don't expect any of you to know who Mark Elias is. You got to geek out pretty deep to know who Mark Elias is. The big news is the Kamala Harris campaign now has a legal team 10 times larger than President Biden's campaign in 2020. I don't know if that's exactly true, but it could be. Harris advisors expect the post-election legal landscape to be quite contentious. I would use language more in line with like, it's going to be a huge feces show. But with that in mind, the campaign has also brought in Mark Elias, one of the top campaign and election attorneys in our country, or in the world, really. He's responsible for the overturning of those 61 or so lawsuits that Trump tried to bring to the Supreme Court before. Mark Elias has litigated cases in front of the Supreme Court many, many times. He's been working hard on the gerrymandering and voter suppression things going on in places like North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, a lot of other places, along with Eric Holder. They have done an immense amount of work, but it's really behind the scenes. But they are a huge part of saving America from the Republicans trying to cheat their way into power. So that's something that I want to talk about in the future. And also, another thing is what kind of changes are going to happen with the Republican Party? You know, we have Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. Adam Kinzinger is part of a video. There's a group called Republicans for Harris. There already was Republicans against Trump. Now there's a new group called Republicans for Harris. There's a new group called Evangelicals for Harris. It's getting pretty nuts, the amount of people who are turning against Trump and really the Republican Party at this point. And like my friend Doug said, the Republican Party doesn't exist even right now. It's just Trump. It's the Trump Party. And he's not the only one that I've heard say that. I believe I might be somebody who has said that in the past as well. But Adam Kinzinger said, you can vote for Kamala Harris this cycle and not be a Democrat. You can still be a Republican. It's just if you vote for Harris, you would be a patriot because you would be saving the country. So people like him, Liz Cheney, people like that who have turned away from Trump and have gotten kicked out of the Republican Party, even though I'm sure they would be, like Liz Cheney is totally in favor of a national ban on abortion. I used to think that she was absolutely crazy and nuts, and she kind of is. I would not agree with these people at all in a conversation about policy. But they understand this whole contentious thing that was started by Newt Gingrich mostly about calling the Democrats the enemies. They know that the age of doing that is finished. All right? The last 30 years of doing that is finished. We need to work together. And I think even Liz Cheney knows in order to instill a national abortion ban, she would have to be going against 90% of the United States people. So I think they're coming to their senses, and I think they have a chance of restoring the other side, the other party, whether it's going to be called the Republican Party or not. I think they want to salvage the Republican Party. They want it to be called the Republican Party. They want to take it from the grips of Trump. And my question would be, will you allow Ted Cruz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nikki Haley, who ended up endorsing Trump? To me, these people should be ostracized completely. Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and people like that have publicly been brave enough to stand up for country over party. And I could see them having a path to run the party. You know, I could see them immediately after Election Day say that, okay, we're going to rebuild this party. Now, people like Kevin McCarthy and Nikki Haley are going on Fox trying to tell Trump what to do. Stop talking about her race. Stop talking about her crowd sizes. Stop talking about her gender. And start talking about policy. They want to be able to, after Trump loses, they want to say, hey, man, we tried to tell you. We tried to save this campaign. We tried to save this candidate. He just wouldn't do it. I was out there 3 months ago saying what should happen, and it didn't happen. So now here I am. Make me the new leader of the Republican Party. Kevin McCarthy should not be allowed to be a part of that. He's, first of all, one of the dumbest people to ever walk the earth, but he condemned Trump after January 6th, and then he went down to Mar-a-Lago and used part of Trump's anatomy as a popsicle. We're going to talk more about those things in the future, but I haven't even started my list or my clips. It's not often the world is able to bask in pure genius, but it did happen this week. I want to play you that right now.
Virtually 100% of the net job creation in the last year has gone to migrants. You know that? Most of the job creation has gone to migrants. In fact, I've heard that substantially more than beyond the number of 100%. It's a much higher number than that. But
yes, you heard that right. You're thinking, oh, wait. Is it possible to have something, be more than 100%? Is it possible to have even more than 100% of the jobs to be taken by migrants? No, you're right. It is not possible. Yeah, I just had to play that for you. It's one of the stupidest, funniest things that happened. Here's another thing, though. Let me show you some numbers here. I'm not going to show you because you're listening, but yeah, here it is. Here, ABC News and Washington Post and Ipsos. Okay, so ABC News, Washington Post, Ipsos polls came out just last night. Really, really good numbers for Kamala Harris, but here are some things that I've heard pointed out that are kind of astonishing. In July, the question, who is in good enough physical health to serve effectively as president? Trump was ahead of Biden by 31 points. I don't know why, but he was. Now, Harris is ahead by 30 points. That's a 61-point change, virtually overnight. There are some other things here. Has the mental sharpness it takes to serve effectively as president? Trump was up by 30 points. I don't know why. Now Harris is up by 9 points. A very important question. Understands the problems of people like you. Biden was winning that by 2 points. Harris is now winning it by 7 points. And represents your personal values. Biden had that by 5 points. Now Harris by 6 points. So she's doing better than Biden. Also, Kamala outperforming Biden's 2020 numbers with non-college educated white voters. And she's also now winning in the also important question of better with the economy. Now, of course, you know what I have to say about polls. If Kamala's winning by 2 points, she's more likely winning by 5 or 7 points. You've heard me say that. Now, here is math Dowd. He's a lifelong Republican, but he's also an analyst and a numbers guy. And here's Matt Dowd on the Nicole Wallace show, and then you can hear her ask him a second question.
Vice President Harris's numbers, favorability numbers, have improved by 20 points in 3 weeks. 20-point improvements in her favorability numbers. How people feel, who judges best, who works best on the economy, has went from a dramatic advantage of Donald Trump to basically even today. And that's a fundamental shift. And how people feel optimistic and hopeful about the direction of America has fundamentally changed. People have argued the facts now for months and months and months and months, and the public seem to be impervious to the facts. But all of a sudden now they're no longer impervious because their feelings of the race has fundamentally changed. And that's the problem that Donald Trump and his campaign have. And I, struggling through this as a strategist, just to sort of, put it up and see how you can fix this. It's very hard to fix it when there's been that psychic of a shift in a race.
Matt, with that said, take me through how you see the data that's out today. The new data is the Cook political report. And then I think yesterday or earlier this week, we had the new New York Times polling, which puts her ahead in most of the battleground states.
So my view of the data right now is they're actually underestimating Vice President Harris's support. The Cook political report data came out of the field August 2nd. The data was out 12 days ago. So it hasn't been in the field. It was gone 2 weeks ago. And so to me, the last 10 days have only improved the vice president's position. There is a Monmouth poll out in the last 2 hours, a national poll, that had the race as close, as right on as anybody in 2020. They had Joe Biden winning the race in 2020 by 5 points. He won it by 4.5. As of today, the vice president has a 5-point lead nationally in this race, in a very A-plus polling firm in the course of this. And so I think when we discuss the Cook political report and the New York Times political report and all that, all good news, but I don't think it's near as good news as what I actually think reality is today. That's why I think you're seeing the floundering by Donald Trump and his campaign. They know this data that I'm telling you. They don't think it's a 1-point race anymore or a 2-point race. They know it's a 4 or 5-point race as of today.
As of today. This is actually about 3 days old. Now we have the convention coming up this week. It's going to be Kamala and Tim Walz and other really, great speakers. Michelle Obama's going to speak. It's going to be the best of the Democrats on TV constantly all week long. With what Kamala Harris has been doing over these last now almost 4 weeks. 4 weeks? 4 weeks? I think so. Everybody is ready for this. Everybody is here for this. You just heard Matt Dowd say that she is doing as well as Biden was doing in this A-plus poll in 2020. And she's going up. He thinks she's going to go up more. People call it a honeymoon. I think it's just the beginning of a long, very happy, good marriage. I think it's going to go beyond a honeymoon. I think it's going to go all the way to Election Day. And more people are saying things like it could be a landslide, which is almost necessary to overtake what this feces show that Trump is going to try and put on after he loses. And you're going to have Ted Cruz and all these people. What are they going to do? Are they going to go along with Trump in the election denial of 2024? Or will they finally see it as an off-ramp? They may see it as an off-ramp if there's an overwhelming landslide. This next week coming up is going to be incredibly positive. People are feeling the joy. Again, last week I started with Tim Walz thanking Kamala Harris for bringing back the joy. We can all feel it. The vibration is higher. And this week is going to be crazy. And you think immediately after that she's going to go down in the polls? No. She's running a flawless campaign now for a month. Not a single mess up of one single word. When we come back, we're going to talk about a few things, but one of them is going to be how Tim Walz is connecting to the people and how important and pitch perfect her decision to choose Tim Walz. was as her running mate. But let's take a short break and come back. You're listening to A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host. We'll be back in a few seconds.
Yesterday I posted something that said to stay tuned. I had something to say about one of my Republican friends. I play a lot of golf in Florida. I run a league that has 80 ladies in it. Most of them are Republicans, of course, because this is Florida, so they outweigh my Democratic friends. But we're friends regardless. We don't talk about politics. Anyways, I went up to her and said hello to her yesterday, and she says, guess what I did? And I said, what'd you do? She goes, I walked into the Democratic office in Longwood, Florida yesterday, and I raised up my hands and said, I'm a lifelong Republican. What can I do to help? She ended up donating money to get all of these signs and stickers and a hat and a shirt. And she told me, I love Tim Walz. She did good picking him. And she said, it's time for a female to run the country. So I was so excited. And I just wanted you to know that there are so many people here in Florida that are not voting for Trump. Regardless of what you hear, we could be flipping this state blue. I hope so. My husband says, I don't think so, but I feel it. But anyways, I wanted to share that with you. You all have a good rest of the day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
An unknown woman, I don't know her name, on TikTok. I've heard other people in Florida talking this way. The opponent of Rick Scott, the vile, horrible, non-human that is the one of the senators in Florida. He looks like a Skeletor kind of head. You might have seen him. He's bald, and always has a look on his face like he's scared. And he swindled money. I should have looked up the details of his crimes. Anyway, he's a horrible, horrible person running for the Senate. He only won by 10,000 votes in his last election, and his opponent is now saying that she's pulling ahead of him in polling. So, Florida. Huh? Florida. I told you a long time ago that I thought Biden was going to win Ohio. A lot of people from Ohio are feeling this way. North Carolina. Kamala Harris, I believe, pulled ahead of Trump in North Carolina. Yeah, here, more Matthew Dowd. Brand new ABC News poll out this AM that has Harris up 6 over Trump among likely voters. That's nationwide. Independents have moved from Trump up by 4 to now Harris up by 11. And Harris has favorable of a net 1. Trump favorable is negative 22. He's lower today than when he lost in 2020. You also heard this woman talk about her friend liking Tim Walz. Kamala Harris told Tim Walz, hey, you should go talk to Nebraska. You should go talk to, all these white voters who feel disenfranchised by their country. The poor white people who feel like the government's only made up of elites. Tim Walz, you go talk to them. And he's like, sure, I'll go talk to him. I talk to him all the time. I live in, Mankato. I live with these people. I talk to him all the time. I've grown up with these people. So he went to Nebraska, and I want you to notice the sound of the crowd.
Yesterday, Vice President Harris rolled out a plan to start building an opportunity economy during our first 100 days in office. Cutting taxes, not for the billionaires, but for the folks in this room in the middle class. Taking on those who will price gouge at the grocery stores and other stores. lowering the cost of rent and the opportunity to own your own home. Continuing to cut the costs of prescription drugs that we all depend on. And just like we did in Minnesota, relieving medical debt that straps millions of people.
The opportunity economy, another slogan by the Harris-Walz campaign. Now, you heard Tim Walz. He also was in Nebraska talking about things I didn't even know what he was talking about. There's apparently a small food store chain or a fast food or something. And he said J.D. Vance is going to be here next week, and he's going to go into one of these places, and he's going to call these things Hot Pockets. But, of course, Walz knows the real name of it. I don't. I would be lost in Nebraska as well. But Walz, and I've witnessed this personally myself. I've been in meetings with Tim Walz when I used to work on small business matters at the Capitol in St. Paul. We were trying to work mostly on paid family and medical leave, which Minnesota now has as a law. But I'm talking about, I was working on this for 10 years. Had a couple meetings with Tim Walz involved. I even headed one up. And Tim Walz makes you feel like you are important, an important part of this thing we're working on, an important person. He wants to hear what you have to say, no matter who you are. He's the quintessential white dude. And Kamala knows, hey, so, I'm black and I'm a woman. Will you go talk to these people? And he's like, sure. I am one of those people. That's why this ticket is so powerful. And you can hear there how good he is at this. And this is him by himself. Kamala was not there. This is him going to Nebraska by himself, filling the auditorium. Not just with people falling asleep like what Trump does, and he doesn't even fill the auditoriums anymore. These people are fired up. You can hear it. They're waiting in hot weather to get into these places. They had to turn 4,000 people away in Nevada when Kamala and Tim were there. It was a 12,000 seat arena. They had to turn 4,000 away because they couldn't fit them. This is driving Trump crazy. Walz is talking about Kamala and her economic plan, which she had a rally, not even a rally. It was just sort of an announcement of her plan, but again, felt like a rally because the crowd was nuts. She put out the details of her economic plan. Donald Trump's details are, I got a big, beautiful economical plan. I'm going to talk about it now. I saw she was on the cover of Time and they had a drawing instead of a picture. I look much better. I'm much better looking than her. Sir, you're going to talk about your economic plan. I'm talking about it right now. I look much better than her. It's a big and beautiful plan. And they're saying Kamala Harris needs to sit down in an interview and answer questions. Well, she's answering our questions without us even asking. She's putting out her detailed plans. She's talking about her policy and how she would handle it. Yeah, I'm realizing I'm running out of my list is long. I'm going to run out of time here, but it's amazing that they tried to say that Tim Walz is he's racist against white people. That's what they're trying to say, because he and Kamala released these videos that everyone's loving, where they're just kind of hanging out, getting to know each other. And, Kamala is really into cooking food, Indian food, which is very spicy. I love Indian spicy food. Tim Walz is kind of, he's doing the joke. If you grew up here in Minnesota, you would know this. We kind of disparage ourselves, like instead of salsa, we just have ketchup, The hot salsa basically is ketchup with a little bit of onions cut up in it, because we're so afraid of spices, because we're just, we're all German or Norwegian. So he said, I just have white guy tacos. And she goes, oh, what's that made of? And he goes, it's just beef and cheese. And she goes, you don't put any sauce in there for any kind of flavoring? And he's like, oh, no, that's too much. That's too spicy. They were just doing this, and the right wing loses their minds. People like Ben Shapiro, I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a right wing influencer on YouTube and stuff, and he was losing his mind. This is a racist campaign. Racist against white guys. Us guys who can't get girlfriends. What about us? What about all us white a-hole idiots? This campaign is racist against us. They're saying things like, oh, Kamala wants to take away our red meat. That's all you got? That's what you got? That's what you got. She's trying to help regular people, and that's what she says. Donald Trump goes into a microphone and says, bacon is 5 times to 30 times more, maybe even more than 100 times more than it used to be. And she's like, look, listen, inflation is down to where we want it to be, but I know it's still hard to pay for groceries, and it's still hard to pay for rent. I worked at McDonald's through college. I did it for spending money, extra spending money, but I worked with people where this was their second or third job, and they're trying to just get by for their family and pay rent and buy groceries. I know prices are still too high. Bread is maybe 50% more than it was 5 years ago, which is true, as opposed to everything's 100 times more expensive. Many people say more. Many people say much higher than that. So she's talking to the people. She's saying, listen, I know it's still hard for you to buy groceries and pay rent, and that's what I'm working on, and here's how I'm going to do it. She knows how to talk to us. She knows how to talk to all of us. He doesn't. He doesn't know how to talk to any of us. And now it's just showing more and more. Jen Psaki put it pretty well this morning. Every time he opens his mouth at these rallies and press conferences, he sounds kind of boring and he looks small. Now Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have stolen the show. They're shrinking Trump down to the aging, confused, boring, rambling Donald Trump he really is. The more he talks, the more he helps the Harris-Walz campaign. And same with J.D. Vance. Anyway. So this is going extremely well. We've got the convention this week. Joe Biden's going to speak tomorrow night, and it's going to be a huge celebration of the guy who saved the United States democracy from autocracy. He's our big hero. Now he's stepping aside. The Harris-Walz campaign is going incredibly well. The universe is timing this perfectly, don't you think? You know, we're going to keep Biden in till the end of July, and then Harris is going to take over, and it's just going to be 100 miles an hour all the way up to Election Day. She's been working on this for 3 years. She's ready. Let's put her out there. And then other things. If I can read this, the writing is so small. Illegal border crossings fell in July to the lowest level in 4 years. That's a headline from the Washington Post this week. Homicides are plunging in Biden's last year compared to Trump's. That's a headline from Fox News. U.S. inflation cools again, actually is lower than 3%. It's where we like it to be. And the Biden and Harris celebrate landmark deal to lower medication prices. You might have heard about that last week. The crowd went nuts for Joe Biden as well. They started chanting, "Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe." Because he made it so that prescription drugs will be affordable again. The Republicans, they can't talk about the economy anymore. They can't talk about the border anymore. And the Harris campaign has done a great job making sure everyone knows that it's Trump who blew up the strongest border bill in probably American history. That's Trump's fault. Kamala Harris campaign has been on the offense right away, right when the rubber hit the road, on the offense, pointing these kind of things out, making sure people understand the reality, not the alternative facts. The reality. By the way, talking about fake, people are featuring Craigslist ads where Trump is looking for people to come to his rallies. And they say, you must stay for at least 1 hour because people are walking out while he's speaking. We will pay you to attend, really small writing, the upcoming Donald Trump rally on Saturday, the 17th. Must be a U.S. citizen to apply. And you have to stay for at least an hour. In all of the towns where he's putting on rallies, he's running ads on Craigslist because he can't get people to come. So even the people who are not enough to fill the auditorium are fake. They don't even want to support him. Where are these people going? You're not seeing the crazies talking into microphones anymore at rallies. You know, they're kind of disappearing. Jen Psaki's right. He's boring. Even they know it. Now he is the old guy who can't talk straight. And we've only got a little more than 2 months before Election Day. And this week is going to be the Democratic Convention. It's going to be insane. And it's getting fun. We're having fun now, right? So now we can listen to this together and have fun. We're going to also be talking about some other things because there are a lot of people concerned about what Trump is going to try and do after he loses this election. But even with those things going on, we're going to have a lot of fun here on A Satellite View. Thank you so much for listening. We'll speak at you next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.